right. Well, welcome to the fifth episode.
Episode 5.
That's right. Yeah.
Come on. Come on. We didn't plan this.
No. I mean, it
Even
wouldn't
though
have
it
that been
doesn't-
great if it was last episode. Though.
Yeah.
But hey, episode 6 will be episode 6.
And we did plan that meticulously.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I timed it up perfectly. So hopefully by the time we get to Phantom Menace, it will be episode 1.
Is Phantom Menace the first of the prequel?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know the names actually too of the prequels at all, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it could be fun to keep that in the dark.
I think, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to seek it out for sure. Phantom Menace, I would guess, is like a name of a ship or something, Otherwise,
It's not a bad guess.
Look at the Phantom Menace.
Oh, sorry, just kicked the table. Yeah, what could the Phantom Menace be? Let's put that one out to the listeners. Don't spoil anything. Just DM me, I guess.
Yeah. If you had to make a guess, if you have Star Wars knowledge, just like expunge it from your brain for a moment and just make an educated guess based on if you'd only watched the first 2 movies. What do you think Phantom Menace would indicate in the Star Wars universe?
Well,
I think ship's a strong guess.
Okay. I think the people who have seen it will know why I asked it that way, but I'm gonna not say anything.
All right.
Yeah.
We're not even supposed to be talking about Phantom Menace stuff today.
No, we're not. Today we are talking about some fallout from The Empire Strikes Back, a very successful and critically acclaimed and well-loved sequel to Star Wars. Like we said, this was the first one to have the episode number on it when it was released, episode 5. And then when the first one got re-released back in theaters a year later in 1981, they gave it the subtitle of A New Hope and put episode 4 on it. On the scroll line.
Yeah, actually, I think we mentioned it last episode, but when I was watching like one of the interviews or like news channel interviews, whatever, like responding to what fans thought of Empire Strikes Back, they at the time said that the next movies were going to be prequels, or there's going to be prequels. So
yeah.
So it was known at the time. I know we were talking about that, like whether or not they had planned,
right,
like. Or whether or not this one announced like 3 other movies, basically, or 4, I guess.
Yeah,
and it did. Which is pretty crazy.
I know. I was watching like an interview with Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher that came out like right at like pretty much while the movie was in theaters, and Mark Hamill was like saying how he's like, so we're definitely all in the next movie, but. After that, I don't really know because after that, then we're going to go back to episode 1 through 3, which will kind of be dealing with like the origins of like Darth Vader and Alec Guinness's character Obi-Wan. So like they already knew that was what the plan at the time was.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I also wonder so if they knew that. Obviously, things, there's like a lot of time in between that, so things wouldn't be able to be planned out so perfectly. But I wonder if there was plans then, like, okay, we're going to go back to that prequel trilogy, and then after that, are we going to go and then revisit, like, Luke and everyone wherever they are in the future again? I don't know if that's what the series does once Disney buys it, but, like, based on what I know, I don't think Luke is in those ones, really, so... yeah.
Well, I guess we'll have to find out. But I'm trying to remember exactly because I was watching something about this, and I'm pretty sure he sketched out an outline for like 9 movies.
Oh.
And then it kind of got condensed into... Like, I think a lot of the stuff that happens in Return of the Jedi, he planned for it to be like 2 movies or 3 or something. I can't remember exactly, but...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious if it'll feel faster paced than Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I thought that was interesting, though. Yeah, I don't want.
You have to so carefully
I know. I just don't want to say
navigate.
anything about it. But yeah, I think he did plan on going back to do the prequels and then going back again to do what happens after the first three movies and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah.
I think I.
Yeah, and I'm just like, because I know Disney buys them, I'm just like assuming original intentions don't pan out like in any way.
No,
Yeah.
no. Not really.
Yeah.
Any new thoughts about the movie now that you've had some time to marinate with it? And what's your overall feeling and excitement level about Star Wars content at the moment?
It's getting up there. I gotta say. I gotta say. Because I watched Empire Strikes Back here, you got my initial reaction, but having gotten time to sit with it, I sort of an opposite effect of the first movie. Sitting with the first movie and also reading the comic made me feel like the first movie was lacking more. But getting the time with the second film and reading the comic adaptation for the second film made me so much more appreciative of the movie. And like, I just keep thinking back on how awesome it was. Kind of just like a spectacle of a movie and the character. Like, dude, I was so happy with the characterization of the movie. And it's funny too. One of the street interviews that I watched, it was people waiting in line to see Empire, and the guy was like, "So, like, what are you expecting from this one? Like, what do you want from Empire that you didn't get in the first one?" And the guy's just like, "Characterization, the characterization." And I was like, "Yes, this dude gets it.
Let's go.
He's me. He felt the same way." So yeah, I'm getting to a point where I think I told you I almost wanted to just like watch the third movie myself.
Yeah.
I'm getting to a point where I want to start Googling things, but I know I can't do that because I'll get spoiled. And also like I'm getting social feed recommendations for Star Wars things now,
Nice.
which is frustrating because I can't really look at them.
Yeah. Even like certain like character designs and things would be more fun to experience in real time and things.
I saw like some dude even doing his own CGI like model edits of like people using the Force, and I was like, okay, this video like seems like it's cool based on the first 2 seconds, but I can't watch it anymore because if there's characters in here or like if it references anything, I don't want that spoiled.
And to this point, you've seen a pretty limited amount of like Force usage in the movies and stuff.
Yeah.
So like, that could be another fun thing about it is to see like what the Force even becomes, and
Yeah. I'm assuming like Disney Star Wars uses the Force much more than like it previously had been used. That would be my guess.
Yeah. Yeah. In some ways, I
don't
would
know.
think.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, and I was thinking about that as well. Where like, damn, he's probably got to be like pretty careful while doing like research about this movie, even because
Yeah.
you can find stuff from the time, and that of course won't like spoil anything, but there's a lot of like interviews about this movie from like 2005 or whatever. And
Yes, I
yeah.
know. I accidentally almost watched a reaction to Return of the Jedi.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Luckily, like I realized immediately when they were like, "So you just saw Return of the Jedi," and I was like, "What is that?"
Oh, no.
Yeah. What? That's wrong.
Yeah. At the time, this isn't a spoiler because they were all saying it at the time, but it was called Revenge of the Jedi at the time, before it came out. When
Yeah.
Empire came out and everybody's talking about the next one, it was called Revenge of the Jedi.
Is Revenge of the Sith a thing too? I feel like
Yes.
I've heard both.
Yeah. That's one of the prequel movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know. I've been thinking about it so much since we watched it, even though I've seen it 100 times. Like, I really just wanted to watch it again, like, right after we watched it.
I would watch it. I was gonna say I would watch it again, like much quicker than I watched the first one again.
Yeah, me too, to be honest. Because the first one, like, I do really love it, but I can kind of, like, picture everything in my head. And it's also, like, a lot of events that are like, yeah, this is cool to look at, but the second one has so much like quick dialogue and little moments with the camera and the actors and things that
Yeah.
like it's not like they go over your head the first time you watch them, but I think, the more times you see it, the more of those things you'll remember and they linger with you. And then, especially like when you're not so focused on like, okay, let me make sure I'm understanding like the plot and what's happening. Like now you already know what happens, then you can focus on like the little details and things like that. So,
Yeah.
um,
Oh man, dude, the beginning of Empire, I keep thinking about that too. Like just that whole opening sequence, I think. Like the more I think about it, I'm like that in Echo Base, like that's kind of a masterpiece, really.
oh,
It's so good.
the whole like beginning of the movie until they all like leave the planet is like its own movie in
Yeah,
and of itself with like
it's really
three
good.
acts and everything.
Whew.
It's awesome. I fully agree.
I kind of think I'm not gonna like any. I hope I like the other movies as much as I like this one, but I'm a little worried now because I'm liking this one a lot now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is, I will say, and I know I've already told you, it is my favorite out of
Yeah.
all of them. I do think it is the best one, but I don't think that necessarily means that it will for sure be your favorite one because
Hmm.
there's a lot of disagreement among people, and so who knows what you'll end up thinking about the next one and the prequels and stuff. But I personally still love like the next one and the prequels. Like there are a lot of problems with them, but I think they're really interesting and I think will be really fun to watch and talk about.
Someone
So
did tell me that the prequels have some of the best like fighting choreography of the series.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, we'll unpack that later.
It's yeah. Yeah. There's things I really like and things I don't like about that. But we'll yeah.
You know what's really funny, by the way, just on the topic of spoilers for Star Wars? Like 2 months ago, my old roommate, like we just had a huge conversation about Star Wars because he was like info dumping lore to me, but it was so foreign and abstract at the time that I like have no clue anything that he said. Like not a piece of it stuck in my mind. I don't
Wow.
know. Maybe like later we'll get on to like the prequels or like the Disney movies, and like I'll be like, oh, like know what that is because I heard it once or something.
Right.
But I'm just like I think it's very funny. Like Star Wars jargon is like very easily lost on laymen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is one of those things where you could be like, English, please. uh, yeah, there's so much like terminology and
Yeah.
character names and planets and
Tauntauns,
bullshit.
Hoth, Echo
Yeah.
Base,
Oh,
Jedi, Sith, Force.
all that stuff is sweet though.
But like, hey, I knew all that.
Hey, yeah.
Tauntaun, are you impressed?
I know.
I know what a tauntaun is, dude.
I am impressed. I guess that could be a good transition to talking about some more behind the scenes stuff because, so I guess for this episode, should have probably said it right up at the beginning, but we'll be talking about a behind the scenes documentary that's called SPFX, The Empire Strikes Back, that mostly focused on the special effects in the
Narrated
movie.
by Mark Hamill, though. That was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I
it
really
was
like
cool. He did a good job.
that. Yeah.
Some of the writing was pretty silly, I think, but
I thought it was like sweet though.
Yeah.
Like an endearing old way.
I know that I liked like it was very of the time, the
Yeah.
whole production of it, especially what he's like something like imagination is the vehicle and special effects are the roads that allow us to get there.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
It's also pretty like it is interesting though rhetorically. They talk about Star Wars in such a grandiose way already, and like
yeah.
only the second movie had come out,
The greatest space fantasy
Yeah.
adventure ever made.
and like they're talking about how they're raising a generation of filmmakers and whatnot. Like,
Yeah, a
pretty-
lot of the documentaries focused on like kids making stop motion movies.
which was amazing by the way.
Yeah.
Because it reminded me because I used to love doing like stop motion videos when I was younger, And I was just thinking while I was watching this, I was like, oh man, in like the alternate reality where like younger me got into Star Wars, could have been a real menace, like models and more stop motion stuff. I was
Mm-hmm.
already doing like Halo stop motion, so
Nice.
just a
With like action
footstep away.
figures.
I was using so I had custom Lego figures that I made. Like I
Oh,
printed off skins and pasted them onto the
right.
body, and
Nice.
like I spray painted like a motorcycle guy's visor so it looked like one of the Halo visors.
I remember when that was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I was pretty deep into like the Lego YouTube community when I was like 12. Yeah, it was making me think about that too because the majority of the stop motion things that I made when I was a kid were like Lego Star Wars uh movies,
Yeah.
like little movies. Um yeah, I was like, what the hell? It comes full circle all the way back to where like I don't know. It's not like it was the first use of like stop motion in movie. I mean, far from it. They went into the history of that, which
Yeah.
was pretty cool too. Talking about early stuff with like Ray Harryhausen and then the King Kong and the difference between like using mechanical like animatronics versus stop motion sequences and things. But our boy Phil Tippett got shouted out. Our boy, what do you mean? Well, I really like Phil Tippett, legendary stop motion animator. He got shouted out in the sequence specifically with the Tauntauns. He did the motion of the Tauntauns
Oh, okay.
and developed sort of this technique called like go motion, I think it's called. Yes, it's called go motion. It's like the little motion blur effect that happens with his stop motion where like, you know, you see a lot of stop motion, it's very like jerky and clicky and stuff.
Yeah.
His has like this little motion blur thing on it for animals and stuff to make it a little more like naturalistic seeming
Oh,
and
okay.
stuff. And they used it for the Tauntauns and they didn't use it for the walkers because they're, you know, like machines versus
Yeah.
organic things.
Oh man, I kind of want to go compare those two again now.
Have you seen or heard of Mad God,
No. Mm-mm.
a movie that Phil Tippett directed and, you know, pretty much his like brainchild that he worked on for I think like 30 years.
Oh my
He was
goodness.
working on it. It finally came out like 3 years ago, maybe.
So it's all stop motion.
Yeah, yeah, mostly.
Yeah. That's
There's
crazy.
some others. It's a little bit of like mixed media stuff going on,
Okay.
but it's mostly stop motion.
It's
Really
good?
cool, really cool. Yeah,
Ooh, okay.
super like disgusting though.
Is it a like? Is it about religion?
Uh, maybe it's pretty abstract. There's almost like no talking, and it's just I think it's about like war and violence and religion and life and all.
Okay.
I don't know. It's pretty like abstract, like kind of his like this is my like life philosophy. Seems like that, you
Sounds
know.
cool. Yeah.
But obviously, I don't really know what it's necessarily supposed to mean, but it is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
shout out to him.
Yeah, shout out to Phil Tippett.
Big props for spending 30 years working on your film, man.
Mhm.
I'll maybe give it a watch if I find the time.
Take 80 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
I really liked the sequence in the documentary too about they talked a long time about that one shot of the snow speeder like going down the like the diagonal cable and having like a custom explosive put on the back of it to like trigger at a certain time and yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. Also, answered my question from the last episode because I was wondering where they filmed it. Norway.
Norway, yes,
Which
yeah.
was cool. And then also, it was cool seeing like them in Norway, and then also like the Walker model shots where they had to like replicate the snow as well.
Yeah.
And like the different sizes of the models was cool. I know like we sort of went over that in the first movie when we saw the models, but the models are just like so cool every single time.
So good. Oh my god. And like yeah, like you could just tell like okay, this time they've kind of like not necessarily perfected, but certainly like gotten a better understanding of these techniques and how to make like super realistic looking miniatures and stuff that looks very mechanically believable and things.
Yeah, there's a great moment in that documentary when they're talking about how like they're getting this one shot. It's going to be a second in the film, but like it took them 8 hours basically to set this all up, get everything made. And it's just like a one of the ships exploding, I think, but they've got it like so planned out that they are recording from like so many different angles. So when it comes to
Yeah.
editing, like you can just use it however you want. It's really cool.
Yeah, because they had to like destroy the model for it, so they want to film it like 16 times at the same time.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
poor models.
Oh, I know.
It's gotta hurt.
I know. Oh man, but I was thinking like maybe they didn't want to like give this away at the time or something. And I've seen behind the scenes of how puppets are shot before, how to make them look like they're right, appearing next to a real person and those kind of techniques. But I was really hoping that we would see a little bit more about Yoda than we did.
Yeah.
And they did talk about Yoda, but not that much because I just kept thinking about like, okay, they talked about building the Dagobah set and how it was really difficult to like sink the X-wing under the water and like pull it up and
Using
everything.
a crane, they said.
Yeah. And apparently the first time they did it, the wings just like folded down and collapsed because they'd just been like soaking in the water all day.
Be pretty funny if they left it in the movie.
Yeah.
Yoda just trashes the ship.
Yeah. It's not really up to Luke whether or not he wants to stay anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, okay, the puppet itself is very interesting to me, and they did go into that.
But not really also. They said it was the most complicated puppet ever made and then showed us like one shot of its eyes and said it could do a bunch of expressions. But like I would like to know more as well.
Because it's super expressive and very believable for the most part, like we talked about before. But yeah, you're right. They showed that little, I don't know, like fleshy looking mold that had the eyes and maybe a little bit of the mouth going on. But yeah, and they showed like Frank Oz kind of messing around with it for like 2 seconds. But yeah, that as well as like how the shots were set up to make it. Yeah, because I know that he's like underneath the set and there's like a little hole in the floor for him to like hold him up and operate him. But like, how do they?
Maybe they feel with like those characters like Yoda and the droids, it like ruins some, like you said, sort of some of the illusion if they reveal that in these like documentaries that kids might see, I guess.
Yeah.
Because also in the first one, I don't remember them really showing us like the C-3PO suit coming off or anything, or whatever that is even.
Yeah, that one's funny though because C-3PO and R2-D2 were narrating it
true.
and also acting. Like in this one, Mark Hamill was narrating it, not like Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
So, and he was saying stuff like, I play the character of Luke Skywalker, whereas in that one, they were pretending like Star Wars was real. So it would have been very...
They also played characters in that one too, didn't they? Weren't they like, we are actors, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. A weird like area to have to justify and deal with. But I think it would have been very weird if they were like, yeah, and then I pulled my face off and Anthony Daniels, a lovely man, climbed inside my body and did my... like, I don't know.
I'm actually just a skin. Yeah, that would be a little like existentially terrifying for children.
Yeah.
And me.
Yeah.
This is like a little, I mean, we're talking about Yoda and this is a little crossover with the comic, but I do just want to say, found it interesting because we also read the adaptation of Empire Strikes Back, the like Marvel comic adaptation.
Yeah, that's, I think, issue like 39 through 44 in the 1977 Star Wars series.
If you read anything in like the back of some of the issues, there were like some letters sometimes and just like some thoughts and character designs and stuff. And I guess it's a similar circumstance where he was saying like he didn't see the movie. He illustrated and wrote, and it was illustrated and written before like the movie was seen. They just like used reference photos and whatnot. Like he got to go to their headquarters or whatever and just like look at a bunch of photos to make it. But I guess there was like maybe different Yoda designs floating around because I don't know if you saw in the back there were like 3 different pitches for like what Yoda could have looked like. Kind of. Like, they're just very odd. They almost make him look more like those little alien guys from Toy Story than he does now.
Oh yeah, just more of like a classic like little green man type
Yeah.
of guy. Yeah, and so the one we read was the one that came out in the monthly series, but they did originally release it as a mini series, like, and then they just republished it again in like the main numbered series.
Oh, okay. I was confused because they're also like you may have seen the difference of Yoda in the paperback version, and I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
what?
So they put it out like as a full collection first, I think, or maybe a mini series and then whatever. But yeah, at that time, that was before the movie came out. The first two issues of that or something were released before the movie came out, and Yoda is blue in those. Because
Yeah.
in the original like Ralph McQuire concept art stuff for it, Yoda was blue for whatever reason. I mean, I didn't see this anywhere, but I'm assuming it's just because of like lighting and how stuff appears on film and it contrasts with the background and things like that.
Yeah.
That they decided to make him green instead, but it's kind of interesting.
I thought it was super interesting and like a little on topic, off topic, but because I read some of the like leading issues to get to like The Empire Strikes Back because I was also curious if they would like fold it in at all, which they didn't do at all.
Not really, no.
Um, but like Jabba the Hutt is introduced in the comics in those as well, and I know we haven't seen him in the movies yet, but I also know what Jabba the Hutt looks like,
Yeah.
and that's not Jabba the Hutt.
No, he's just like a guy. What? But well, he's an alien, but he is humanoid.
He like looks
Except,
like an anteater to me.
yeah, like a walrus. He has like big whiskers.
It's very weird.
Yeah, very strange look. And I thought it was funny because in the comics, so in the comics between the two movies, the whole thing, Han is like, oh, I have this money that I got from helping the rebels in the first movie. I'm going to go pay off Jabba the Hutt so that I don't have a bounty on my head. He immediately loses all that money in the comic.
Yeah.
So it puts him in a state of like, well, now I got to do, a Saturday morning cartoon adventure excuse to like over and over do missions to get money again or whatever.
Yeah.
Then he saves Jabba the Hutt at one point in the comics from like these termites.
Oh, they like almost eat the ship or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like skimmed that one.
Yeah. It's okay, but not really worth reading. But they, it's just funny because then in that one, Jabba the Hutt takes the bounty off of his head as well as like gives him a bonus, more money. Then they probably got like some kind of mandate from George Lucas or somebody who was working on the movie to be like,
yeah, he says they've been working with someone like I forget who, but someone like with George Lucas.
yeah, like a liaison from them. Yeah. They probably told them something like, oh, the bounty still has to be on his head at the beginning of the next movie. So then, like in the comics, right before they adapt the movie, they just have him run into Jabba the Hutt again, and then like again get the bounty on his head somehow. I forget, but
again, I skimmed some of it, but yeah, from what I was reading, I was like, oh, he just has the bounty on his head still. It feels like it never went away.
yeah, but
Weird.
So they had to kind of like have him not be able to pay the bounty off, then gets it paid off, then have to undo that again for the context of the next movie. But anyway,
like I said, off topic, on topic, but it is just interesting how like there is sort of a multimedia telephone effect with some of these things.
Yeah. I was looking at the Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back sketchbook, which was we looked at the one from the first movie. But this is Joe Johnston, who was the visual effects, like art director for the movie, and he drew a lot of the schematics for the models in the first movie and stuff like that. So this was, we're looking at an early concept design for Yoda, who literally just looks like a classic like garden gnome with a hoodie on.
Yeah, it looks like a Keebler elf almost.
Yeah, truly. And he's got like a Santa Claus beard and a staff, and then he kind of gets a little closer super like wrinkly, big like chicken claw feet.
Yeah, I feel like the note that he got there was, "Hey, he's old. 800 years of training Jedi's."
Yeah, yeah. And then this last one, it says final Yoda head design. Well, okay, it really looks nothing like that, and I'm glad it doesn't. I quite like the way he looks in the movie. Much, I mean, and that's not necessarily fair to say because that's just what we're so used to what Yoda looks
Yeah.
like. But this is a kind of weird look. Too old, as Yoda would say.
You know, these to me though do look a little bit like how Yoda looks like in the movie. Maybe I haven't seen Yoda so much where he's like cemented into my head, but he is like maybe it's also just because like I think I told you the Yodas I've seen have been like so airbrushed and like yassified Yodas,
Yeah, yeah.
and he's so like gross and ugly in the movie,
Yeah.
kind of. And that just like that one's gross and ugly to me. He was gross and ugly in the movie, so in my head maybe I'm just like overlaying the two. But yeah.
Yeah, I think okay. Well, let's just for you real quick. We'll pull up a picture of what Yoda actually looks like.
Yeah, I always in my head my default Yoda is Lego box Yoda, which like he's got his
Yeah.
little lightsaber
Uh-huh.
and he like looks super polished.
So,
Wait, but he looked like that in the movie?
yeah, that's what he looks like in the movie.
That's from Empire?
Yeah.
Okay, I made him uglier in my head. Yeah, I feel like I was a little cruel and mean to Yoda when I just said all those nasty things.
He's kind of cute.
Yeah.
Um,
He's not as bad as I remembered.
I
He's
mean,
terrifying there in like the original illustration.
yeah, very creepy. But I like what they ended up with. I think he looks great in the movie. But yeah, speaking of this sketchbook, the most interesting thing, I mean, these are just great designs all around, like this Rebel cruiser that's at the very end of the movie that they're all on for like the final shot with the Rebel fleet being like, okay, and what will happen next? Oh my God, that's beautiful stuff.
What is gonna happen next? Oh.
All the ships are really cool. Slave One, Boba Fett's ship. Huh?
Pretty cool.
I know you didn't have too much of an impression of it from the movie, which I understand. It's not in it very much, but
It's cool, but I also don't understand why it's like a fan favorite ship. I feel like Millennium Falcon's a lot cooler. Like
I mean, the Millennium Falcon is probably the fan favorite ship, but people do really like this one.
I guess there's not so many ships also to be like, this is my favorite ship at this point. I mean, we have a handful of ships.
True. Yeah, holy shit, the AT-ATs are so fucking good.
Those look really great.
But some early, oh yeah, look at this one of it crashed in the snow. Beautiful. Yeah, this is good audio content to look at pictures. But this early designs, it was gonna be like on treads, like a more classic tank, and then they were like, oh, what if it walked, and then let's make it more like an animal. These are the other two-legged walkers in there, but
I wonder if they would have stopped if it was treads then. I mean,
yeah.
that sounds. Maybe it was like early concept, like while they were conceptualizing things in the actual script itself, too. But it's like kind of a plot moment. Or I guess not really, but it's a little nice Luke moment that he figures out how to take those down.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a big, very popular moment, you know, that they do the tow cable around the legs. Yeah, and it is a thing of like, I was kind of thinking about this when we watched it first, like, a few years have passed between the two movies, and they refer to him as like Commander Skywalker and stuff, and then when he goes into the battle on Hoth, he's very much like in charge and telling everybody what to do, whereas in the first one he was just like a pilot with another guy who was telling them all what to do.
Yeah.
Which is a cool like progression in his life, I feel like.
I like it a lot. It's like a little funny in the beginning of the movie because like previously what you knew Luke as is just like kind of a gangly kid. Like,
yeah.
But I feel like he fits the role he plays well.
I think he kind of like proves himself as a little bit more of a badass in the second one.
Yeah.
And like still like has a lot to learn and everything, and has he still feels consistent with the character of like the whiny farm boy guy, but like he's had some experience now and he's a little bit more mature and everything.
Yeah, and thinking about it, a big difference for me between the first and the second movie, I think, is like I didn't feel like I had any characters to really latch on and root for in the first one. Like I knew who they were kind of just there introduced to me. But like yeah, the second one, I really like Han Solo now.
Hell yeah.
I really was rooting for Luke, and I really like Luke now. Like you said, he is like proving himself. He's faced with like pretty taxing moral dilemmas, like help my friends, stick to my training. Like he's got amazing moments in the movie. And then I also really liked Leia in the movie too.
Yeah.
Like, I liked all the characters so much more.
I mean, it's great to hear, but I can really understand why. Like, trying to look at it from a little bit more of an outside perspective, like, because, yeah, they talk about that a lot in the behind the scenes things that I read of like, we really want to not make it too slow, but slow it down a little bit and like spend time with these people and make them be like, how would like real adults kind of behave in this world and stuff, which I think they do really effectively. Also kind of cool that they were talking about how they talked about this in the documentary as well, how they like filmed elephants walking for like the motion of the walker legs and stuff. It was also Phil Tippett and John Berg. Got to shout out John Berg as well.
Yeah, that documentary was like making me appreciate filmmaking in a way like I haven't done in a while. Especially like it's a pretty obvious thing about filmmaking, but it's kind of like it's beautiful that it's such an interdisciplinary art form. Like everyone is involved because they were like, okay, we're shooting this in Norway. Like they're doing the Tauntaun animations in San Francisco. Like the Yoda planet is like a soundstage in London. It's just like this is like being worked on across the world. Like in so many hands. It's just really cool.
I know, and yeah, like you said, it's kind of what is cool about movie making or and everything. But like that just. Yeah, like it's all just these little pieces, individual pieces that, like, how on earth can you blend all of those disparate and separate, like, people, places, actions, types of photography, sound, everything to coalesce into, like, one unit that is pretty seamless and all kind of blends together really nicely.
It's also pretty funny that like they gave Mark Hamill's his narration of that. Like he's got a little bit of sass to him at certain times when he's like talking about how like in Norway I had to do this shot over and over again. I couldn't wait to get to the soundstage in London.
Yeah,
and I knew I'd be in like it's so funny.
Brr. But I was reading the fucking interview with Irving Kershner, and he said it was -25 when they were shooting there.
Okay, that's pretty rough.
Yeah. And he said something like, I set up the camera 2 feet outside of the hotel so that we were all standing inside of the hotel room, and just poor Mark Hamill had to go out there in the snow by himself and crawl at the camera.
Oh, no.
Like, for where he's got Ben.
That scene is where I was like, where are they?
Yeah,
that's the exact scene. I was like, where the heck are they right now?
Because that's the one that it's clear that they are not on a set, because they have like a helicopter shot of him from very far away,
and it looked it looked cool.
Yeah.
Also, I thought it was so funny because we got to see the Wampa.
Yeah.
The Wampa suit, and the actor. Not wearing like the headpiece of it, just falling in the snow.
Oh man,
because he's on stilts. They said. So,
yeah, they said he's like a 7-foot tall guy to begin with on like 3-foot stilts,
trying to tread through snow. And there's just hilarious clips. I shouldn't like have laughed at them, but they're pretty funny. Of him just like face planting forward, and then it cuts to another clip, like back to back almost, of him just completely falling backwards.
Yeah. I mean. It might like there. That was just reminding me of how in that interview he's talking about how Peter Mayhew, who is in the Chewbacca costume, was constantly just fainting during production, and he was in the first one too. And so it's just like I don't know, like something beautiful about it, like that. You're like, well, I'm gonna faint a bunch. Yeah. That's just gonna happen. But I care about what I'm doing, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
It's just like, the blood sacrifice, if you will.
And we briefly talked about the Ugnaughts last time, the little guys on Bespin, the little like
Right.
pig guys,
Yeah.
which are played by little people for the
Wait,
most.
Bespin?
Bespin.
I thought that was like Cloud City.
Oh, but sorry, yeah, Bespin's the planet. Cloud City is the city.
Oh, okay. Actually,
Yeah.
that's the city, not the planet. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So on Cloud City, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, you're just being vague, so
Yeah.
I just had you circle a bit.
No, I appreciate you keeping me in check.
Yeah.
Now
that I know my stuff.
Yeah. He said on the sequence where they put Han Solo in the carbonite, and there's a ton of actors and characters all on that circular set with like the orange lights and the floor and everything. And there's so much like smoke coming up out of the chamber, and they have the Ugnaughts like working down in the chamber, like on the mechanical stuff. And those are all played by little people, and he said that they were constantly passing out like over and over again, and so they just had to like keep like waking them up and be like, okay, sorry, but we're gonna push through this. And like because the smoke was going up to people's waist level so that you could still see the actors' faces, but it was just filling the masks of the little people.
Oh my god. That's hilarious, but also so unfortunate.
Yeah, I know. It sucks, but like I guess you would just be like, well, let's just fucking push through and hope this is over with soon.
I mean, especially for Star Wars, right? At the time, you're working on Star Wars.
Yeah.
The much anticipated sequel.
The first one...
All fans.
Yeah, for sure. In the first one, I can definitely imagine people being like, okay, fuck this. Like, this is not worth it for this stupid, like, what is this even going to be?
Yeah.
Like, especially while you're making it. Like, wow, I know you weren't, like, extremely hot on the first one, but, I feel like you can see, like, while you're making it, before the visual effects, before everything comes together, it would probably have some sense of, like, what is this? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. It'd be... I'm sure no one would be, like, candid with their true impressions now, but it'd be interesting to hear from people on set, like, what they really thought.
Yeah.
Like, right after... Or, like, during the filming process, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And without any, like, PR veneer covering them or anything like that.
For sure.
But probably won't get that ever.
I mean, not a ton, but Harrison Ford does talk about how he doesn't really like playing Han Solo.
Oh, really?
But he only kind of starts saying that in the future, so.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because the fans are so annoying. Yeah.
Oh, you have unlocked, like, memories for me. Yeah, I remember really reading about him getting, like, arguments with fans or something.
Yeah.
Like, or people also being like, he hates his fans. And then other people being like, well, his fans are really annoying.
Yeah,
like,
they are. Star Wars fans, it would suck to be, like, an actor that gets bombarded with, like, well, why didn't you do that? Or,
never tell me the odds.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Jesus.
You look like you need a good kiss.
Yeah, you could use a good kiss. Yeah, that's an awesome part of Han Solo's character. Another funny thing. The documentary in combination with this interview from Irving Kershner, which the interview that I'm pulling from is from issue 11 of the Lucasfilm Fan Club magazine. And this came out in 1990, so 10 years after the fact, but it was after Irvin Kershner just finished RoboCop 2. For the most part, except for like the last two questions, he's only talking about Empire Strikes Back. So, but he says, in the documentary, we got to see the way that they shot the Tauntauns close up. From far away, when you see the full body, they're like stop motion models, but when they're up close, you usually only see like the saddle and then like the neck up, and it's like one guy or it's like a hobby horse for them sitting on it, and then one guy like, puppeteering the head and stuff. And he says in the interview that it was so cold on the days that they were shooting the Tauntauns that they were supposed to, have all this like steam coming out of their nostrils and stuff, but those mechanics got like frozen or whatever and weren't working. So the puppeteers are literally just smoking cigarettes inside the heads and blowing the cigarette smoke out of the nostrils.
Honestly, part of that documentary, like one of the things Mark Hamill is saying is, when it comes to filmmaking, it's not the tools you have, it's the imagination that you use. I feel like that's a pretty good example of
Yeah.
hey, when things don't work, you got to figure it out, and they good enough solution, keep yourself warm and generate the smoke.
Yeah, for sure. I can only imagine. Hold for motorcycle sound.
Kind of like a spaceship if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like the Millennium Falcon revving up to leave Echo Base just before Vader can reach them.
And Luke wondering, will he ever see his friends again as they drift off into space?
God, what an awesome shot when he's walking in the mountains after like crashing his snowspeeder and the Falcon just flies behind him and he looks at him and he's like, well, I knew I wasn't going with them, but damn, they're really gone now.
It is also like, that sucks for him, really, because it's like, when are you going to see them again?
Well, he does not see Han again at all, and he only sees Leia for like 2 seconds when she's being pulled away, and she's like, "It's a trap!"
That's true, yeah. For all I know, he can never see Han again.
Yeah.
Han could die.
Yeah.
Although I know as a fact Han doesn't die because other weird memory that got unlocked recently. When I was in college, they used to do like movie nights on the lawn or whatever. I remember walking by one day, and I think they were doing one of the new Star Wars movies, I guess, but there was like a ship, and all of a sudden, like, it was probably the Millennium Falcon, or maybe, I don't know, like old Han Solo gets on the ship, and then like Chewbacca's with him too.
Chewie, we're home.
Yeah, he says something like, "This is my ship," or something. I don't know. But I was just like walking by, and I saw that, and I was like, looks kind of dumb.
Is dumb. But whatever. Yeah, so I guess, spoilers, he's alive in one of the new ones.
Yeah, well, I know who lives and dies, okay? I know every character's fate.
Is that true?
I guess not Luke, but I feel like now I know Han and, well, no, I guess I don't. What the fuck am I saying? No, I don't. I only know Leia's.
But even that, you don't know when. Yeah. Oh, man. Just makes me sad thinking about all the new ones. Yeah.
Well, you don't need to cry.
I won't. What were we saying right before the motorcycle?
I think we were talking about...
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say it seems pretty dangerous to smoke a cigarette inside of that puppet head, though. In terms of like smoke inhalation, I guess, you're just kind of hotboxing this head, and then also like it's a bunch of fur and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what if it just lit on fire while they're inside of it?
Yeah, actually, that does seem like I guess they weren't concerned about starting a fire when it's so freezing. Maybe they were like,
True.
It won't be a big deal.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, another really cool, I don't really have that much to say about it, but a really cool part of the documentary was when we saw the assistant director talking to those guys about what they should do in the like trench battle, like when they're, how they should be reacting to the guns going off, and like I'm pretty sure they said they were like Nordic soldiers that they got as extras for that.
Yeah, he was mentioning, or there was some mention of like a language barrier, so like or some type of like communications barrier or something.
Yeah,
but the guy he was speaking English to them, so I don't know if it was a language barrier or not. But yeah, maybe it's just because they weren't actors.
Yeah, and they also couldn't like see what they were supposed to be like looking at.
Yeah, there's the great like clip of him being like, okay, and there's like the giant walkers there, and he's like, but they're not there.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
But I mean, it's just like you said, just another part of it all really comes together, and you can just pretty much believe that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Like,
man, I want to be in a Star Wars movie. I want to be an extra.
It would be so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing, kind of jumping all around, but that's okay. From the sketchbook that was really interesting is the Boba Fett designs. they were
Ooh.
talking about it, and they say originally the Boba Fett costume was intended to be worn by a squad of commandos, super commandos, troops from the Mandalore system, armed with weapons built into their suits. So,
Is that first mention of Mandalorians?
at least that we've seen so far. I mean, it could have been in some other publication somewhere, some like reference book or
Yeah.
something. I don't know, but yeah. And then if we look at these sketches, they've
Ooh.
all got these different little like symbols on their helmets and stuff, and some of these will be just straight up in the Mandalorian.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah,
Dude, these look sick. These designs look really cool, actually.
yeah, and so like even all the way back in 1980, it was at least a vague idea that there was this planet called Mandalore that kind of had like these super soldiers that are from there, and that they had like jetpacks and stuff. You know, it's pretty
Okay,
cool.
I'm gonna ask a question. You have to answer it.
Okay.
Um, before the Mandalorian series, is like Mandalore in one of the movies? Like, is it introduced in a movie?
No.
Oh, so it just gets introduced, or like the concept maybe is in one of the movies though, like of a Mandalorian, or no?
It's, I mean, yeah, this is not really a spoiler. It's really not talked about in any movies.
Oh, interesting.
It is talked about in a good bit of comic books and books, and potentially also video games before the Mandalorian show.
Okay.
So and it's definitely pretty heavily explored in the Clone Wars cartoon and some other things.
So that's where like the bigger Mandalorian plot point stuff is before the actual show. Then
Yes.
Clone Wars probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The stuff that's still considered like canon is from the Clone Wars show mostly, and yeah, other stuff too. But
yeah.
well,
Just curious.
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
curious.
but like some of these backpacks and weapons and things, like these will be in the Mandalorian. Like not exactly, but like I don't know, some of these little wrist cannons and things like that. Like, yeah, I mean Boba Fett has that in the movie, so.
I mean, again, this is a visual, but I really like this helmet with the sigil or whatever it is on it there.
Yeah, for those of you at home, if you want to if you just Google Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back sketchbook PDF, it's free on the Internet Archive, and this is on page 71. It's just got like 4 different close-ups of Mandalorian helmets, and they're pretty sweet.
And the one I thought was coolest was the one in the top right corner.
Okay. Well, the one I think is coolest is in the bottom right corner.
That one is pretty cool, but I would just like to see it in more dimension, you know?
Yeah, sure.
I like how this is kind of like eyes above it, you know?
Yeah. It's like the back of a butterfly or something that has like the fake eyes on it or whatever. Any other thoughts about the comic adaptation? Written by Archie Goodwin. I'm drawn by Carmine Infantino. Just to shout out the people who made it, but
I don't have much positive to say about it. I mean, this one feels much more like a dilution than the first adaptation does to
Yeah.
me. Like, it feels like so much is cut and so much good stuff is cut. in this
yeah,
one.
it really rushes through
The characterization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's pretty much just like the plot beats shown. And there's some really nice, I think like the first page of a lot of the issues is really good. Like some of those splash pages that sort of have like, this is what's going to happen in the issue in the background, and then in the foreground is like what's currently happening. Like those are not, especially like the bounty hunters one, where it just has like drawings of all the bounty hunters in the background, and
Yeah.
they look really cool.
That issue cover has like one of those old funny comic sayings on it too, where it's like, and now bounty hunters, or like, yeah.
I also love how they keep referring to them, and this is not just in the comics, it's in like board games and other like, fan newsletters and things as well. They keep referring to the characters as Star Warriors a lot, like in like the narration boxes, and they'll be like, and now we see our Star Warriors, traveling through the asteroid field,
Yeah.
fleeing the Imperial ships, and like, it's like, stop calling them Star Warriors. I don't like no one ever says Star Wars or makes any, they don't, like, that's not a thing in the
Yeah, they're
universe.
not like,
Like,
these are the great Star Wars.
yeah, no.
Yeah, I've noticed it, but like just like a couple times, and I thought they were just being cute, you know? Like,
Yeah, but it's
but
dumb.
I didn't know it's like a trend of them doing that. It does sound really dumb. Like
Yeah,
Star Warriors.
it is. I was like looking at the instructions for this like TIE Fighters versus X-Wings board game. Comes out a few years later, but yeah, they call them Star Warriors in that too. Um, like space combat of the Star Warriors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I maybe if like the title wasn't Star Wars, I could get behind like they're Star Warriors, but
yeah,
because it's Star Wars, it's just like I don't know. No, I couldn't get behind it regardless. Sounds stupid no matter how you say it, I guess.
I know that feels like so dated to me for some reason. Like something that they would say in the '70s about it. You know?
Yeah. You watching Star Warriors with your friends tonight?
Not what it's called. Yeah, I don't know. I agree. The comics are just kind of a worse version of the movie. They tell the story pretty correctly, but I did find it interesting. Like they said some stuff they had to omit. Like for whatever reason, they weren't allowed to show the big worm that comes out of the asteroid.
Yeah.
But it was still a plot point in the comic where they leave through the teeth, but they just don't show it like coming out of the hole.
But it is, if you haven't seen the film, I feel like that moment is weird though still because like yeah, you don't see the worm, and then also the illustration of the cave compared to the movie. The movie, it kind of like in a slightly campy way, it looks like giant teeth. Like,
yeah.
Not cave.
Right.
In the comic illustration, it really does look like rock.
Yeah, it's just like stalagmites and stalactites in teeth form. And they also never say, like, we were inside something that's alive.
Yeah.
Where, like, in the movie, you don't have to say that because it's extremely obvious and they show the creature, but, like, it's left, like, pretty weirdly vague there.
I read that part twice because I was like, did I just skim over it? Like, did my eyes lose focus?
No, it's like the writing was skimming over it.
Yeah. Also, how many times do Han and Leia kiss in the movie?
Only twice.
Twice.
The one time that's interrupted by C-3PO is like the big one when he's like, "You're trembling."
That's it. There's no C-3PO doesn't do the interruption.
Yeah, he doesn't. They just kiss and then it goes away.
I was like, something was so weird about that moment. Yeah, it gives her a narration where it's like her inner thoughts are like, oh, is she afraid to dig deeper into this? She pulls away because she is like, and it's like that's not what happens.
No, and that's so much more like corny and soap opera-y than it's pretty realistic in the movie. I feel like where he's not like the best guy, but he's still very believably like handsome and charming. That you could see like why she is falling in love with him, even if he's kind of like a jackass and stuff.
Yeah. I also was just not feeling their characterization of like Leia's thoughts.
No, it's a problem in all the comics where Leia is so focused on as a object of Luke and Han's desire, as like who's gonna get her between Luke and Han.
She's like one of the most obvious woman written by man characters.
Yeah,
in there. It's like
she does not feel like that in the movie.
No,
at all.
No, and she has like her cool moments in the first movie where she like takes her own action and whatnot.
Yeah,
and she's even maybe she's a little more like subtle in some of that in the second movie, but like her character moments are so much better in the second movie.
Yeah, I agree. She doesn't, I guess, physically do as much in the second movie as she did in the first one in terms of like action sequences and things. But I agree, her characterization is better.
I just remembered a thing about Star Wars that I forgot was a thing. And I guess we're getting to it at some point. I'm going to assume it is in this next movie.
Can I guess what you're about to say?
Yeah.
Is it about the bikini?
Yeah. I was like, I've seen images of like Leia next to Jabba, like in a bikini.
Yep.
I'm curious how that'll play out. Because I was like, before I was like gonna talk about how she's like kind of a good feminist character in a sense, but then
Yeah.
there's like something in my mind trying to hold me back from that.
Well, yeah. I mean, we'll definitely talk about that more next time. But I think
It may be fine.
a lot
I
of
don't know.
people were kind of upset by that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe it may not be fine.
It's rough. Well, it doesn't like. Okay, we'll talk about it later. I'll say it doesn't like break the reality or anything. It's not that bad.
It's kind of a weird moment, is it?
It's just like why would they do that when she's not really. She's very beautiful and she has a love interest and things, but she's not really like sexualized at all. And a little bit in the first one, but in the second one, really not at all.
Yeah. Just and also like teased. She's just really been teased thus far, right?
Yeah. Teased sexually, you mean?
No, just
She's been like a little tease so far.
yeah. That's that's what I'm saying.
She's like covering up. We know that she's working.
Oh God, you and I are gonna have to talk about this moment. I'm gonna.
No, what did you mean by that?
Oh, just like Han Solo's like the most that's she's been sexualized is like Han Solo teasing her.
Yes. Like where he is obviously sexually attracted to her.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily like the camera is leering at her in weird ways or
Oh,
anything.
some of that goes on as well.
Or, I mean, not necessarily just that, but the costuming and the way she's written and everything is...
I guess I gotta see.
Yeah,
It sounds
yeah.
like, yeah. It sounds like we're talking about a complex issue and I have no true understanding of it.
It's pretty interesting.
But I just remember that. I was like, oh, that's a Star Wars image I know that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Pretty famous thing that happens.
Yeah, I feel like also I feel like I've seen the costume at like Party City before called like Leia's slave costume.
Yep. Yeah, referred to as Slave Leia on most toys and
Oh no!
whatever. Yeah. Yep. So
Oh
I guess
no!
we'll table that one for now, but I'm sure we'll have some more to say about that next time.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, the characterizations are super diluted and just not as interesting in the comic. The only good dialogue is the stuff that's like directly ripped from the movie. Like some of the lines, I'm like, right, like I like that line because that's like what they say in the movie. But other stuff is like, okay, I can tell this is just like Archie Goodwin filling in plot beats and stuff.
Yeah, it's also like maybe if I knew the first movie as well and I like enjoyed it as much, I would have experienced this reading the first comic adaptation too. But like this time reading this adaptation, there were a lot of moments from Empire that were like so much more memorable for me than like moments from the first Star Wars movie. And so like getting to them in the comic adaptation, I would like recognize when a line or two is left out, and I'd be like, why do they leave out that line?
Yeah,
It'll be like
yeah.
the good lines they leave out, or like some of the most iconic ones, it seems.
Yeah, with Yoda and stuff too.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole sequence with Yoda is just like so whatever in
They,
the
like,
comic.
Do it so quickly.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
They're like, it feels like they're not even at Yoda's place when he's like, Yoda will feed you. Like, yes, I am Yoda. I'm the Jedi.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Whoa, okay.
And then I think they only have like one more cut back to there where it's like, I can't lift the X-Wing. Yes, you can. Let me do it. And then he's like, oh, what's that tree? There's darkness in there. Like, right, okay, yeah, all this happens in the movie, but we're really going and going.
And you know, I also thought that like little tree vision moment would be an opportunity for the comic to sort of get a one-up on the movie and do some cool visual stuff. But also, they didn't. It was worse. It was actually better than the movie.
Yeah, the panel structure like never takes any chances or anything.
Super
It's just
boring.
like a 2x3 grid pretty much the entire time.
You can hardly even tell like when the Vader mask comes off that it is Luke.
Yeah.
It's like so tiny. Yeah, you just have to get it from the text.
And huge moments are just like one of 8 squares on the page instead of like, I mean, and that's just a pretty common thing in comics from that time anyway, but
It
like,
did feel like the first adaptation did better at that though.
yeah, I think you're right. Before we talk about the game,
Yeah.
since we've already been talking about the interview with Irvin Kershner a little bit, I want to talk about, yeah, a little bit more behind the scenes stuff. Did you happen to look into anything behind like why George Lucas didn't direct this one himself and why he got someone else to do the screenplay? And
No, I have no idea.
he was extremely busy and after the first Star Wars movie came out, as I'm sure you can imagine, like
Yeah, swimming
his
in buckets of money.
yeah.
No, you told me. I mean, I think you went over this last time, but he basically like started just like film businesses, right, to help others like create with like special effects or something. A special effects company.
Yeah, so the group of people that he got to make the visual effects for the first movie became the company Industrial Light and Magic, like while that movie was being made, or yeah, during the production of the first one. And then he moved them to San Francisco, I think, like while the second one was being made. So he was like very much hands-on with that and way more hands-on with the special effects than the rest of the movie, the non-special effects sequences of it.
Mm-hmm.
Irvin Kershner says like he only actually visited set like 3 times during the whole filming of the movie, but he was super, involved with the story and everything beforehand. So I think that was the main reason. It's just because he was busy with starting those companies and things. And then...
But then he doesn't do the next one either.
No, he doesn't, which that's
Still
also interesting. But
busy but different story.
yeah, it's a different
Okay.
different stuff going on that we can talk about next time. But it's it's actually funny. It is for very different reasons actually. And this one, even though I think they got along really well, or at least on Irvin Kershner's side, he always says that like George Lucas was really great to work with and would let him, do his thing. And he would consult him if he wanted to make a change from the script or something, but they could usually come to an agreement, and he wasn't like super dictatorial about like everything has to be my way type of thing. But they went pretty over budget and past schedule for this movie. I don't know. I think they kind of just like spent too much time and worked a little too hard on this one.
Yeah, I think the documentary said 14 months and $7 million on special effects.
Wow. Which is like barely anything by today's like special effects budgets for a movie as big as this.
Sounds inexpensive now.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I feel like one of the more expensive movies of the time, I'm sure. So then also he was working on developing Raiders of the Lost Ark, too, with Steven Spielberg, which only came out a year later after Empire Strikes Back.
Another film I haven't seen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should watch that.
Yeah, I need to watch the Indiana Jones movies, too.
Yeah.
I've only seen The Crystal Skull.
Oh, okay. So, the best one.
Yeah.
And it was pretty bad, actually. But I haven't seen that one since
Crystal
I was
Skull?
like 13. Yeah.
That one's bad, yeah.
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 But-
So I thought you were being like facetious.
No. I was just saying, in my head, it's pretty bad, and I know everybody thinks it's bad, but I haven't seen it since I was like 12 or 13, so I guess I can't really say for sure if
I
my...
think it has Shia LaBeouf in it,
Yes,
too.
yeah. As Mutt Williams.
Mm.
So, anyway, he was pretty busy with that. The screenplay is interesting. Initially, George Lucas, hired this woman, Lee Brackett, who was a pretty famous, like, sci-fi novelist. Yeah, pretty famous sci-fi novelist, and was, like, especially renowned for, like, how fleshed out her world building and, like, political structures and, things like that in her books were. And then she also wrote some screenplays. Lucas, like, had the story outline and then sent her that and had her write a screenplay. And he didn't really like it that much, and he rewrote it a couple of times. A lot of things from her screenplay are still there, but the main differences, at least according to the internet, is that like the love triangle was much more of a thing in her script between like Luke, Leia, and Han, and it was a lot more of like who's she gonna choose. And I think George Lucas may have already known where that was going to go, so he was like, let's not play that part up so
That's
much.
really funny. So she presumably didn't know
Yeah,
the connection.
apparently. And then I was reading some stuff about how like Han Solo goes to look for his uncle who's like a powerful force user and
And that's never touched on in any of the Star Wars stuff again.
no, which like sounds pretty silly, I think, for him to just randomly have a force using family member.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, it would be like, why didn't you say anything?
Yeah, and I mean they kind of make a big deal about how there's like pretty much no Jedi left and stuff. And I mean, I wonder if people at the time were like, "What Yoda? Who's this Yoda guy that you're just bringing up out of nowhere?" I thought Obi-Wan and Luke were the only two alive.
Yeah, it is also. This is a comic thing, but I think it's that Vance guy that Luke fights, who's like half robot or whatever.
Yeah,
When he like catches up to Luke at one point, Luke pulls out his lightsaber and he's like, the dude's like freaking out because he's like, Jedi? What? Like what? Like this can't be. What do you mean that's a lightsaber? What? Like it's a pretty shocking thing for him to see.
yeah. I mean, there's supposed to be like none left. So, which, never mind. Oh yeah, another thing. It's pretty funny. Yoda was named Minch. Luke has a hidden sister named Nelith. Lando Calrissian is Lando Kadar. Luke's father was not Darth Vader.
Wait, Luke having a hidden sister is really funny because he does have a hidden sister, kind of.
Yep.
It's just Leia.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe that was why he took that out of the script as well. But people kind of argue about this, and maybe there is like a definitive answer, and I just don't know it. But I think maybe the original intention was for him to have like a new character that's a hidden sister in the next movie.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I want to know what he told. Like, I want to know what his bullet points were when he was like, "Okay, write the screenplay."
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I'm curious because like Darth Vader was not his father in that draft of the screenplay. So George Lucas took it back, changed it all to what we actually see in the movie, and then he gave it to Lawrence Kasdan, who had no produced works at the time, but had sold a couple of scripts and was friends with Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg really liked one of his scripts, blah, blah, blah. They're all kind of talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark together because he wrote the screenplay for that movie too. Mm-hmm. And just off of that, George Lucas sends him the script to like rewrite and punch up the dialogue. So a lot of like the really funny stuff and really good like little character lines and stuff is from Lawrence Kasdan. A lot of the like vibe of the characters.
I guess I should watch Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I mean, it's a great movie. I don't care about Indiana Jones that much, just because, in my opinion, there's really not much like characters to care about and like emotional core to latch onto. But it is an extremely well made movie, the first one especially, and it's really fun and cool. So I think it's worth watching, and it's especially like an interesting point in George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and Harrison Ford's career that, I mean, Harrison Ford is super popular from Star Wars, but this is kind of like he's the lead of Indiana Jones. You know? So anyway, he hadn't even given him the draft for Raiders of the Lost Ark yet. They had just like talked so much that he was like, I trust you to do a pass at the script for Empire. So,
well, good on him. The script is so good, I think.
Yeah, I really agree. The dialogue is like super believable, and yeah.
Like, I hope all the chefs that worked on this one also work on the next one. Like, I hope there's a ton of overlap.
Kasdan, the screenwriter, yes, is again on this next one. The director is different.
Well, I really like this director.
Yeah, me too. And he seems like such a cool guy too. Every time I hear him talk, it's just like You're just like a dude. And he got picked because he was one of George Lucas's teachers at USC. And he had made like movies that had come out in Hollywood. But the quote in the interview is that George Lucas, he's like, why would you pick me to do this? Because I'm like an old man and there's all these cool guys, popular directors these days that could do this. And like, he's a moderately successful working director, but he's not like a household name guy. This is by far his most popular movie. And he said that, George Lucas said that, oh, I want you to do it because you know everything about the Hollywood system, but you're not like a Hollywood guy.
Made an
Kinda
impression
cool.
on him. That's nice.
Yeah. And I don't know how you couldn't be pleased with the results if you're George.
Yeah. Well, I guess, has he ever been critical of any of, like, the movies in the original trilogy?
Yes, and I think we will talk about that later because I think that plays into the changes that he makes in them.
Okay. Yeah, I can't wait till this starts getting a little more messy because from where we are at just two movies, like, none of that really has seeped in yet. And I know that's, like, a pretty big part of, like, Star Wars conversations.
Yeah, and crazy, cranky George Lucas starts to become a much heavier hand in all of it.
Oh.
Not like he wasn't the heaviest hand to begin with. I think he was just younger and full of energy when it all started, and
Yeah.
then gets more exhausted as it goes on. Um,
Hey, it's tiring making all that money, dude.
I know, and hey, he built the Skywalker Ranch off of the second movie, his massive compound in California.
Really?
Yeah. But another cool part about the documentary, Ben Burtt, absolute legend, Ben Burtt, the sound designer for the movies. They do some cool stuff showing the sound effects,
Yeah.
him tapping on wires and
Like the lasers are just the metal wire, like from a phone pole or something. I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
And then like that metal sheet cutter or something
Yeah.
for the walking of the AT-ATs and stuff. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
And him like having to match the motions of the lightsaber with like his microphone in the studio, like showed him watching the sequence and him like copying the movements. So
That's what he was doing there. Okay.
Yeah.
Like when I first watched it, I was like, wait, what sound is he trying to replicate? But I guess it's the sound of the motion.
Yeah, to realistically get like the things going on, and he stays on for a long time. Legendary guy.
Shout out.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to him and Phil.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, it's not like Phil Tippett is even the main special effects guy on this movie, but he just looms large in my head because he's probably the most famous one nowadays. And stuff, just because he has his own movie and stuff. But
I mean, it's cool, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anything else from like your research on the street things or any other behind the scenes things that you saw?
No, nothing in particular stands out that like I've mentioned already. Like the characterization guy was the big one that I was like, that's like what I thought.
Right.
I did tell you like I was looking up just toys and like merchandise that I thought was cool.
Yeah. The Wampa fur, the authentic Wampa fur.
Yeah, you can get authentic Wampa fur for $60, dude. That's a steal.
Yeah, that's
real Wampa. Think about it though. Gotta be one of your favorite movies, right?
Yeah, and I mean, hey, is there a way to prove that that's actually like the on-camera used Wampa fur though?
I don't know, like what their authenticity is with that.
Yeah, but it would be cool to have that.
That man, look, we know he was 7 feet tall, 2 feet of stilts. That's 9 feet of Wampa fur.
Yeah, so that was a big costume that they could take little squares off of. Yeah, and they probably had like 3 of them too that they cycled between.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I was just like looking at the toys and stuff. I think I showed you like the coolest thing I saw was the Darth Vader like action figure kit, where like you were given the head of Vader basically. You can open it up and there'd be all the other action figures in there. I was just like, man, I want this. Like
Yeah.
now. I want this as an adult.
No, me too, dude. And the figures look good for the time too.
Yeah.
Like the costuming especially. You know, a lot of the head sculpts and like faces are pretty dated. Still pretty good for the time, I think, but the outfits look really good still.
Oh, also like the droid toys look so cool. I think this was a bounty hunter one of the bounty hunters that we see
Yeah,
like
yeah.
lined up.
IG-88. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Is that what it actually is?
Yeah.
Very nice. But those look so nice too in action figure form.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like we've talked about this before, but when I was younger, I would buy like the real steel action figures.
Yeah.
And that this like reminds me of them. The way they're sort of like rustic and like I don't know, like modularly robot design, just very very cool.
Yeah.
And it looks so good as an action figure, and like it works with the points of articulation. Just like if you want to get nerdy about action figures,
Oh, well, a
so
robot
cool.
is a great thing
Yeah.
to make an action figure because you don't really have to worry about the angularity of it plays into it.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
So just I was like, there's some really cool figures I can
Yeah.
rabbit hole dive into here. But also, I can't look too much because
I know, you'll start seeing characters from the next movie
Yeah.
pretty easily.
even in like Empire Strikes Back pack stuff, it'll be like I don't recognize that character, so I don't know if like that is someone I don't know yet, or they just made someone up.
Yeah,
like, I-
or it's just like a background guy that...
Yeah. So I have to find stuff that was like specifically from like the like year or so around that time.
Right. I know in 81 they also released like these miniatures play sets that would have like Dagobah play set and like little mini characters and like Battle of Hoth play set. I remember seeing commercials for those one time when I was just looking up like old Star Wars toys commercials, which we should have just watched those for this,
Yeah.
honestly, because that those are probably fun.
Well, maybe we can do it as like a retrospective on the whole trilogy. We can watch some of those.
Yeah, sure. So
Because I do want to watch some Star Wars commercials. That seems fun.
yeah, that would be fun. I know, and we were talking about last time watching the trailers for the movies before we see them. And I think you already said this, but I think I do want to screen the trailers because there's certain things that like maybe that kind of breaks the authenticity of what we're trying to do because I guess, you know, people of the time would have seen the trailers before the movies, but there's certain images and stuff that I think would be cool if you saw them in the movie.
Well, I'm open either way, and I think you should bet for sure. But I will say, against it, it is a little different because I have random knowledge just picked up over the years of like bits and fragments of Star Wars imagery and like narratives
Right.
that people in the past wouldn't have had. So like if I watch a trailer, I might be able to just piece things together
Yeah.
through knowledge that I have.
That's very true.
Maybe.
Whereas it would have just been like a random image to somebody at the time.
Yeah. Like if I saw Yoda in the trailer, I would know it's Yoda. They may have not known they wouldn't have known who Yoda was.
Yeah. Same with like Jabba the Hutt or something. Like, yeah. That's very true.
So maybe I'll veer away from that, at least maybe until we get like, I don't know, maybe into the prequels we can do that, or past them.
There's one, yeah.
Because I feel
There's
like I
one
know nothing about
moment in-
prequels.
In the Phantom Menace trailer that I'm thinking of that I'm like, wouldn't it be so cool if that wasn't in the trailer? And
Okay, you know
so,
what? Well, I won't watch the trailers.
All right. The toys are cool. And speaking of merchandise, this is really only notable because it's the first one, I think. But the first Star Wars video game that was ever made came out in 1982, 2 years after the movie, 1 year before Return of the Jedi comes out. And it is the Empire Strikes Back video game for the Atari 2600. Yeah, pretty bad game.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, obviously it's really old and it's hard to judge like how it would have been at the time, but I only played it for like 4 minutes before I was like, okay, that's all there is.
Yeah, and you know, I know you and I talked about it during like while we were watching Empire Strikes Back. I think it was there maybe after we were like, I was saying like I watched that moment and immediately like wanted to play it in a video game.
Yeah,
And like to their credit, that is like what they did with this Atari version. But it's just like you can't do much with an Atari game, and it's also not like even in thinking about Atari games, it's not that creative an Atari game either. You just sort of
No.
like go back and forth on your spaceship.
Yeah, so the game is just the Walker assault on Echo Base, and you're Luke Skywalker in the Snowspeeder, and you don't even use the tow cable.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
just shoot at them.
you just shoot at them with a laser, and the way that the ship controls is extremely crazy and floaty.
And I don't
You,
know why I thought it would matter, like where I shot, but I was like, if I shoot at the legs, it'll definitely be better than if I shoot up top. But I don't think it made any difference.
I think the legs don't even do anything. You have to like shoot the head and the
Oh,
torso.
okay.
But it literally takes like 50 shots for them to go down.
Yeah, that was another problem. I couldn't tell when I was killing them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I ever killed one.
They change colors as they like start
Yeah.
to get more deteriorated, but
But I would just shoot it, like the colors would change, and then I'd be on my way already because like the game sort of moves you forward.
right, like yeah. There's no way to win either. I mean, which I guess is a lot of games from that time, like an arcade game where
Yeah.
you know, there's no victory condition. You just play it until you die. But uh
Does it get harder? Did you ever get to like a point where anything happened different, or is it just what I
I
experienced in that brief time?
I never got to this, but I was reading that eventually they speed up. The walkers speed up to make it harder. So,
Oh, okay.
um,
Yeah, I didn't get there either.
I guess, you know, for an Atari 2600 game, it visually looks okay. And, you know, I can tell that those are the AT-AT walkers and the snow speeder and whatever. I mean, just from a graphical standpoint.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up what like another Atari game may have looked like, just so I can kind of compare.
I mean, it looks like a standard Atari game, released by Parker Brothers, if anybody cares about that. And the only other interesting thing I found about it was that it was programmed by a guy named Rex Bradford, who, much like 15 years later, declared himself the leader of investigations into the JFK assassination and became famous for like compiling all of this information about the JFK assassination onto CD-ROMs to be like consumed, and then he later made like a big internet database for information about that.
Wow,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
that is interesting. It's also funny when you were saying like 15 years later. I was like, oh no, he probably killed someone.
Yeah,
No, quite the contrary.
just you know,
Just digging into a murder.
sure, yeah. And I don't even think he's like a wild like conspiracy theory guy either. I think he's just like, here's a bunch of like real
Like the data.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah, like make of it what you will.
Like an archiving project.
Yeah, yeah,
Good for him.
yeah. So that's next episode is when we'll talk about our thoughts on the JFK assassination and all that stuff.
And how Star Wars sort of ties into like our conspiracy of what we believe happened.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so not a great game. There are 3 more games for the Atari 2600 that I can think of off the top of my head,
Wow.
maybe 4. They all will probably, we could play them all because I don't think you'll want to play any of them for that long.
Yeah.
They're all pretty much like that.
When do you think we'll get to the first one that is pretty enjoyable?
An NES game for A New Hope comes out in like 92.
Ooh, yes.
It is pretty bad also, but definitely a lot better.
I heard there was a good Super Nintendo one, like legitimately.
Yes, Super Star Wars, those are fun.
Okay.
And then once we get into that era, you get like Dark Forces, which is a first-person shooter, very much like Doom style, early first-person shooter. That's pretty great, I think. And then once we get into the late 90s, early 2000s, there's a lot of really good video games. So, I mean, I think that'll be. I'm excited for kind of the span between Return of the Jedi and the first prequel because it is just a weird time for Star Wars, but a lot of like interesting stuff going on. So
I'm excited too.
yeah.
And then I could also be insane if I wanted to, and I could make the decision to stop this and to never watch the prequels. And I could be
Wow.
a Star Wars purist who's only seen the original.
I feel like a purist would have to watch the prequels, though. I mean, those are all written and directed by George Lucas exclusively.
I guess
It doesn't
that's
get
true.
well, not exclusively. He has one other person help him on the second prequel script, but
All right, you'll get me for 3 more episodes.
okay.
Yeah, but then I'll just not.
We've
watch
renewed
it.
the contract for now.
Yeah.
I don't know. The first game that is really good probably be a little while, but
Fair enough.
yeah, maybe those Super Nintendo games are the first like really fun ones. But even those, they are good games, but they're really fucking hard and they're pretty dated now.
Yeah, I assume I won't be able to get past like the first couple levels. It's like, I mean, like the Power Rangers games like that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game I'm pretty good at, but yeah.
Oh, the Super Nintendo?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
Turtles in Time?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are fun. These are the Super Nintendo ones are a lot like Contra, I guess, or like Metal Slug.
Okay, yeah.
Those type
Those
of
are
like
hard.
run and gun games. Yeah. Maybe somebody will be like, it's nothing like Contra. It's way more like this other kind of game like that. But
You think like a
Shut
Star
up.
Wars fan would be that pedantic about things?
yes, yes, I do. Oh yeah. Also, I was trying to look at the Empire Strikes Back portfolio, which we looked at from the first movie, Ralph McQuire's concept art book. Him and Joe Johnston are like the two main like pre-artist guys, and I couldn't find any like free version of it anywhere except for like the first like 12 images from it. I found on like a WordPress blog, but they didn't have any of the writing about it that would be in the actual book, which
Yeah.
was really what I mean, I've seen a lot of that concept art before, so I really wanted to read about it, but beautiful, beautiful images. Let me see if I still have this pulled up on here.
Yeah, the ones from the first film were really beautiful too.
No, I don't, but just other than Yoda being blue and Yoda's design being closer to what we see in the sketchbook, most of that stuff looks like that's what the movie looks like. So it's just really cool, like painted images, and yeah, wish I could have found some free PDF of that, but sorry, I didn't want to pay for it. So
No, I mean, I guess like you're just not dedicated enough.
well, one day I would love to own like a physical copy of those books because they're really awesome artwork. So
Yeah.
that would be cool.
Well, once the podcast money starts coming in, then that's when you can start buying those things.
Yeah.
And all the Lego sets that you want as well.
Yeah, we can be like influencer girls and make just like an Amazon wish list and
Yeah.
hope that like simps will buy us gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we updated our wish list, like added some new Lego sets we want.
Yeah, I hope you've got an inbox of the 1981 Battle of Hoth miniatures playset.
Hey, are there? Oh, there has to be. I know the answer to this. There's Star Wars trading cards, aren't there?
Yeah, a lot.
I would love to like throw some of those on my wish list, and then just do some ASMR opening of them.
Oh yeah,
You know,
just for the podcast, just right into the microphone.
just for that specific person who bought me.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, send them a personal video.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
very nice.
Just like a little incentive if anyone wants to buy me anything, and if anyone wants to buy me anything.
I like veering this into some OnlyFans type territory.
Yeah.
We could turn a good buck on that. Sexy card pack openings.
Someone's probably doing something close to that.
Oh, I guarantee that exists. Yeah.
And there's absolutely like a Star Wars OnlyFans person, right? Like there's gotta be
sure.
like this is the pivotal Star Wars OnlyFans account.
Probably. I mean, you're talking about the Leia bikini. I mean, a very popular like sexy cosplay thing to do, I guess.
Well, again, I know we've mentioned we'll get into Star Wars porn at like another point.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I forgot we did talk about.
Yeah.
Hell yeah!
Second time.
Hey, Return of the Jedi is where a lot of the ideas for that kind of stuff starts to happen.
Oh,
So.
is it because there's like a little brother sister revelation in there? Is that like?
Well, I was thinking about that while that sentence was coming out of my mouth, but luckily, that's not what I meant.
Okay.
But yeah, there's just like
hide the lightsaber.
more like sexy characters in that movie, I guess, like overtly sexy characters.
Well, I don't know the movie, but I would guess like if Leia is in that outfit, there's others like her who are also Jabba's slaves or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's like straight up. Well, we'll watch it.
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
watch it. Yeah. Any other thoughts about anything we talked about today?
I really like Star Wars.
Nice.
And if we weren't doing this, I think I'm at the point where I would start consuming things at a maybe unhealthy and quick pace.
I think, I don't mean to be too didactic about it, but I do think it's good to not, binge all of it all at once or anything.
Yeah. It feels like a treat that I'm like prolonging for myself. So
Nice.
I like it too, but I also
Good.
have the urge to know more.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way, but you won't have to wait much longer because the next episode will be finishing off the original trilogy with Return of the Jedi, Episode 6. The highly anticipated conclusion to the first trilogy. And we will see how you feel about it. If you're satisfied with the ending and with it as a individual, movie separate from
I hope Chewbacca
Star Wars.
dies. I hope Chewbacca bites it.
That is just not nice.
I hope we get like a shot of Chewbacca in just like the cold expanse of space, sort of just like freezing, like the
What the
Wookiee
hell?
fur. What?
What? You were just talking about how it was so scary to see him covered in snow in the last one.
Yeah, but
You want to see him like crystallizing over and suffocating?
wouldn't you admit a threat is less scary when it's dying?
He's not a threat. He's a friend.
He's a threat.
He's a friend.
Okay. Well, we can agree to disagree. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay. All
I
right.
guess I know he lives because he's in that stupid shot in the future movie.
Yep. No. Well, in the third one, I'll just go ahead and spoil him. Return of the Jedi, they do go back to Kashyyyk, and he hangs out with Itchy and Lumpy and Mala a whole heck of a lot.
Wait, does the movie take place during Life Day?
The whole movie's on Life Day.
Oh,
yeah. It's just the next year's Life Day.
Yeah. They're like wrapping up the whole trilogy, and Han's like, "We gotta get Chewie back for Life Day, though."
Yeah.
I can see how that would like really affect things.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's a important, religiously observed holiday that you can't skip just because you're busy.
Yeah, when Chewbacca is in the Life Day portal or whatever that is, like the Life Day consciousness space that they go and exist in, is he safe from the Empire there?
Well, that's a good question because maybe he's in more danger than he normally would be because
He's like more open.
his physical body is still just sitting there at the dinner table, right?
True, yeah.
I mean, not like I understand how that part worked because then like C-3PO and R2-D2 were there and Han and Luke and Leia were there.
The droids being there is especially funny.
Yeah. Well, they can meditate and put their mind into a different plane. Oh, yeah. Little just bit of trivia that I remembered from the Irvin Kershner interview that I thought was cool. Yeah, Norway was the only location that they shot in the movie. The rest of it's all on sound stages. And it was in London, and I'm pretty sure the same studios that they used for the first one. And they were supposed to shoot on 8 stages, but they only had 7 because one of them burned down during the filming of The Shining. Stanley Kubrick, The Shining, burned down one of the sound stages. Yeah, not
haunted.
Yeah,
spooky.
Don't have anything to say about that really, but thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah. That was a good interview though. If you're curious, I mean for yourself and the listeners.
Did you send it to me or?
Yeah, I sent you a link for it, but that's why I want to make the document because I feel like a lot of stuff just gets buried in like our text conversations about things.
Of us trying to figure out a name.
Yeah. But yeah, again, that was in the Lucasfilm Fan Club magazine number 11 in 1990.
Oh, okay.
And it's a really good interview. He seems like a cool guy who just maintained like a pretty positive attitude about the movie, even through all of its difficulties and things, and says stuff like, things are happening in this universe. I found myself wanting this to be real life and that real life was boring and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I agree.
Yeah, sounds like kind of a huge appeal of Star Wars.
Yeah, it's like
Sounds like he gets it.
that's why there's so much like role playing and stuff, and role playing video games and tabletop games and costumes and all that, because like why wouldn't you want to live in this world? I mean, I know it's a dangerous world, but it's just so cool.
Yeah, when I was like watching the clips of people lined up, there were tons of people like dressed like Han Solo too, which is like such a funny outfit.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of just like the open up buttons, like I don't know, like the very pointy collar like, thing with the vest over. It's very funny.
Oh yeah, especially like the slightly lower budget version of that costume just looks a little silly. But man, he's got some good costumes in the second one. His big blue coat on Hoth. Oh, he looks cool.
Leia's Echo Base.
Oh yeah,
is like my favorite of hers.
The tan like vest that has that like padded texture on it or whatever.
Yeah, if
That's
I wanted an
really
action figure,
cool.
that's like one of the ones I would want.
Oh
Most
yeah,
of them now.
that's what I was thinking of when I was saying that the outfits look good on the action figures. Because in those pictures you sent me of the Darth Vader case, like Leia's Echo Base figure looks really cool.
Yeah, I think that's why I was like I want her most. She looks super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I want a Vader as well.
Oh man,
gotta get a Vader.
I mean, the Vader costume looks even better in the second movie than it did in the first one too. Like just a little higher budget, I think. And
are there going to be any changes, like slight changes in the third one? Do you know superhero movies do that? It'd be like every movie, like
Captain
your costume
America's,
changes a little bit or something.
I mean, super minor. I don't know if you even noticed, but between the first and the second one, his eyes are kind of like red in the first movie, and they're just black in the second movie, which I think works better. And in some shots in the first movie, you can actually see the eyes of David Prowse, like behind the mask. If you like pause it on certain shots of Darth Vader's face, they're not like all the way black, so you can see his eyes beneath it.
Well, I like Vader a lot in the second film, so
yeah, same.
They stick with that. I'm good.
I'll probably edit down this outro part a little bit, but I did want to ask before we go, if you don't mind, one more thing to talk about.
I do.
Okay, well, I'll see you later.
No, go ahead.
I'll try and keep a straight face, but any big predictions for the third movie?
Pretty tough now, I think. Like that's a pretty big cliffhanger we were left off on. Well, inevitably, I'm guessing Luke and Leia are gonna go on a mission to find Han Solo, who is now going to be captive of Jabba the Hutt. And I assume we'll get a scene where like the carbon comes off him somehow. I guess I have no clue. And then it's going to be like a rescue mission to go to say how would Leia get captured even? I don't even know, man. I don't know. Tough to think about.
Yeah.
And then like because it's okay, two big things, like Vader stuff with Luke, daddy issues need to get resolved, and then also I know all that Jabba the Hutt stuff is in it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how big a part of the movie that is. Like I don't know if it's like a like Hoth-sized part of the movie or what, you know?
Yeah, that.
And I know Yoda lightsabers up in this movie too. I think.
Oh, I'm gonna stay fully neutral on saying whether you're right or wrong about anything. But I just thought that would be. It's interesting for me to hear, but also to the listeners to just know what you think is maybe gonna happen.
It's hard at this point too. I guess they also like are probably gonna reveal Leia's Force abilities and like she does something. Also, their family relationship's gonna get revealed. It seems like there's a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, you're definitely correct about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Was I
yeah.
very wrong about anything?
A little bit,
Okay,
yeah.
interesting.
But
Interesting.
I don't want to say obviously which things.
Yeah. I don't think he'll be in it. So I'll just say that. I guess you can't answer it. But shoot, what is his name? Cloud City guy.
Lando.
Yeah, I assume he's no longer in the trilogy. That was like his only piece. But I don't know. Maybe we'll see returning characters that we've met along our way.
Yeah. Well, last we saw of him, he left with Chewbacca to go look for Han, while Luke and Leia stayed behind.
Oh,
so.
did he?
Yeah.
Okay, so he will be in it then, likely.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to that one, and we can watch it anytime you want. There's nothing else to do now except to watch that one. So.
Oh, what?
And then we can die.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean nothing else to do? There's like so many more things in the world to do.
Goodbye.